Ever feel like you're like caught in the loop, repeating the same patterns? Oof, over and over again.
Oh, tell me about it.
Today, we're diving into excerpts from chapter 4 of the Bhagavad-gītā.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because it's an ancient text, but it has all this wisdom for like breaking free from those cycles we were just talking about.
Yeah.
We're going to explore things like action, knowledge, and even the possibility of, liberation.
Yeah, what gets me about the Bhagavad-gītā is how it takes these like big timeless truths and puts them into a story.
Right.
It makes it way more relatable, way more powerful,
Yeah, definitely. It's like having someone right there with you explaining it all.
Totally.
And speaking of guides, the Gita itself has this whole lineage thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like passed down through generations, and it supposedly started with Lord Krishna himself.
It's not just like some game of telephone either. Like, it's a direct line they're talking about. From Krishna to the sun god, and then through all these kings until it finally gets to, like, regular humans with King Ikshvaku.
Wow.
And they didn't keep track of all that for nothing, They're showing how important the spiritual knowledge was, especially for good leadership, for guiding entire civilizations, like, towards a higher purpose, you know what I mean?
It really makes you think about how we see leadership today.
Oh, for sure.
Like, what if our leaders focused on spiritual wisdom as much as they do on, I don't know, the economy or whatever?
Now, that's an interesting thought, isn't it? It's like the Bhagavad-gītā is saying true leadership is about more than just money and stuff. It's about helping people understand themselves and where they fit in the universe.
Okay, so let's get into some of that cosmic understanding. One thing I found really interesting was how Krishna remembers all of his previous lives, and even Arjuna's past lives too, but then Arjuna can't remember his own. Like, what's up with that difference?
Well, it all comes down to Krishna's divine nature. See, most of us experience life as this series of births, deaths, and rebirths.
Right.
We're actors putting on different costumes and forgetting the roles we played before.
Okay.
But Krishna, he isn't stuck in that cycle of forgetting. He's eternally conscious, like way beyond time and space.
So it's not even just about having a good memory. It's a totally different way of experiencing existence itself.
Exactly. When they say Krishna is unborn in the Bhagavad-gītā, that's what they're getting at. He doesn't just pop in and out of existence like we do. And if we can even just start to wrap our heads around that, it might change how we think about our own lives, Like death, the cycles we go through, all of that.
Whoa, that's deep. So you're saying that if Krishna is not bound by this whole birth and death thing, maybe there's a way for us to tap into that part of ourselves too.
That's the question the Gita wants us to ask. And it's all connected to this idea of Dharma, which we'll get into a bit later.
Got it. So before we get to Dharma, there's this other thing I was curious about. The Gita talks about how Krishna often appears whenever Dharma is declining, like when irreligion is on the rise. It's like he's this like cosmic course corrector.
Yeah.
But like, what does that actually look like? How can you tell what's Dharma and what's irreligion?
Yeah, it's like easy to think Dharma and, irreligion are like total opposites.
Right.
Like good versus evil, But the Gita's got a more, a more subtle way of looking at it.
Okay.
It's not so much about like following the rules, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's more about making your actions like fit with this deeper cosmic order.
Okay, so how do we figure out what that cosmic order even is? Is there like a guidebook or something?
Think of the Vedic scriptures as like a blueprint. Yeah. They lay it all out, the principles of Dharma, this righteous way of living.
Okay.
And anything that, goes against that, throws things out of whack.
Yeah.
That's when you're in irreligion territory.
So it's less about just being a good person.
Yeah.
And more about understanding how we fit into this bigger picture, this cosmic dance.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Really, it's about recognizing that our actions, they all have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for everyone and everything around us,
Yeah.
The Gita even says that, like, historical figures like Lord Buddha, they were incarnations of Krishna.
Really?
Appearing at just the right moment to set things straight when things were out of balance,
Wow. That's a big job.
Right.
Makes you think about the impact we all have, even in our own little corners of the world.
For sure.
Okay, but let's get back to this whole liberation thing, this breaking free from the cycles we were talking about.
Okay.
The Gita says that just by, like, understanding Krishna's true nature, we can achieve that.
Yeah.
So how does that actually work? And how is it different from, say, like, yogis who spend their whole lives dedicated to these really intense spiritual practices?
That's the key difference the Gita's pointing out.
Yeah.
Yogis and other spiritual seekers, they're often trying to achieve liberation through, intense discipline and detachment and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But the path of devotion, of really truly knowing Krishna,
Yeah.
it's like a direct line.
Oh.
It's about aligning yourself with the divine through understanding and surrender, not just willpower.
So it's less about how much effort you put in and more about a real internal shift in how you see things.
Exactly. It's about realizing that deep down, we're already connected to something divine.
Huh.
And it goes back to that thing about Krishna's memory and Arjuna's, right?
Right.
Arjuna's, like us, experiencing life through this limited self.
Mm-hmm.
But Krishna, he experiences reality from this place of boundless awareness.
Wow.
By really getting to know Krishna's nature, we can start to access that same expansive awareness within us,
So instead of trying to climb our way to enlightenment, it's already there inside us. We just got to unlock it.
That's the paradox. And it can be a tough one to wrap your head around.
Right.
Those other paths, the impersonalists, the yogis, they're often striving for this liberation that feels separate from everyday life.
Okay.
But the path of devotion, of knowing Krishna, it lets you experience liberation while still living in the world,
Okay.
just with a much deeper understanding.
That makes it feel a lot less intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Less impossible.
Right.
But it also makes me wonder about how we actually live in that state of understanding.
Yeah. Good point.
For example, the Gita talks about these 4 divisions of society, the Varnas, right?
Right.
And it says Krishna created them. But how does that work if he's supposed to be above it all with his whole transcendental thing going on?
That's where the gunas come in.
The what?
The gunas.
How
They're
deep?
like the threads of our material existence,
Okay.
the forces that shape our actions and tendencies.
I'm with you.
These gunas, they're called sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Okay.
And they represent different qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Okay, so how do those gunas connect to the Varnas?
So the 4 varnas, that's the brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, and shudras.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna created them based on these gunas and what those gunas make people do,
So it's are you saying where we belong in society is already decided based on these gunas?
Well, hold on. It's important to remember that Krishna, he created the whole system,
Right.
but he's beyond it too.
Okay.
He's not bound by these divisions, and neither are we, not ultimately.
Right.
The gunas, they influence us, sure, but they don't call all the shots.
Okay.
We've got free will, right?
Yeah.
We can choose what qualities we want to cultivate. We can even go beyond the limitations of the gunas completely.
That's good to hear. It sounds less rigid than I thought at first.
Yeah.
But this whole thing about action and choice, it makes me think of something else the Gita says.
What's that?
It says that Krishna isn't affected by actions, he doesn't care about the results.
Right.
And it's all tied to this idea of being free from karma, which, let's be real, we all want that.
Of course.
So what do we actually have to do? What qualities do we need to work on to get to that point where we're free from all that karmic baggage?
That's the million-dollar question right there. How do we live in the world, do our thing, but not get all tangled up in those karmic strings?
Right. How do we actually pull that off?
Well, it all comes down to shifting your motivation. Instead of what's in it for me, it's more how can I serve something bigger?
Okay.
The Gita talks about this idea of acting in Krishna consciousness. It means doing things without being attached to the outcome,
I think I'm starting to get it. So it's being totally present in the moment, doing the best you can, but without freaking out about the results.
Yeah, think about a musician who's totally lost in the music. Or an artist who's completely absorbed in what they're creating. They're giving it their all, but they're not, consumed by whether people will like it or not.
I like that. It's a good way to think about it. But honestly, that still sounds pretty tough. You know? Especially in this day and age where everyone's so focused on results and instant gratification and all that.
Yeah, it's definitely a practice. The Gita suggests that one way to do it is by seeing our actions as offerings to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay.
You know how devotees offer flowers or food to a deity? It's kind of like that, offering up your actions to Krishna.
Huh. So instead of being driven by our ego or wanting something for ourselves, it's more about aligning with something deeper.
Exactly. And this brings us back to Dharma and the gunas. When your actions line up with your true nature, when you're guided by those sattva qualities, the goodness, the purity, the wisdom, your actions become a form of selfless service.
It sounds like a way more fulfilling way to live, to move through the world. But there's still this idea of inaction that trips me up.
Yeah.
The Gita talks about action, inaction, and then forbidden action. I got to be honest, it's kind of a brain twister.
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox, but those paradoxes, they often hold, like, the most important truths, you know?
Okay, I'm listening.
Inaction, in this context, isn't about just sitting around doing nothing. It's more about recognizing that sometimes true action looks a lot like non-action.
I think I'm following.
It's about surrendering, letting go of that need to control every little thing, and trusting that the right actions will happen at the right time.
So it's that whole let go and let God kind of thing.
Exactly. Think of it like a gardener. They plant the seeds, but they can't force them to grow, right? They do what they can, create the right conditions, provide nourishment, but ultimately they have to trust in the natural unfolding of things. It's the same with us. When we surrender the ego's need to control, we become open to a wisdom that's way bigger than us.
Wow. So it's like we become part of this larger cosmic dance, trusting the rhythm of the universe.
Yes. And in that surrender, that's where we find true liberation, freedom from all the stuff that keeps us stuck. The desires, the attachments, the endless cycle of suffering.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. It's incredible how relevant this ancient text still is. It's like the Bhagavad-gītā has all this wisdom for navigating the chaos of modern life.
It's a testament to how much we all share across time and cultures, isn't it? The same struggles, the same search for meaning, it's all there.
Totally. As we wrap up this episode, I'm curious. What will you, our listener, take away from this conversation? What resonated with you? And how can you bring these ancient insights into your own life? Keep those questions in mind as you go about your day, your week, and see how it feels to view your own life, your own actions through the lens of dharma, of karma, of the gunas. Because within these ancient teachings, there's a real potential for change, for growth, for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we're a part of.